Want to build a thriving business while making a much bigger impact in the world by becoming known as an influential voice in your industry? The choice versus just a choice with your ideal client? That's exactly what you're going to learn as I interview business experts, industry thought leaders, and entrepreneurs who are in the trenches making their mark so you can too. This is the award-winning podcast, The Ambitious Entrepreneur Show, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. And welcome to another episode. So my guest today says more is not better. Better is better. Get more from every single podcast appearance instead of just doing more appearances. How many of us just went, amen? So joining me on today's show is Tom Schwab. Tom is a podcast interview marketing expert. He's an author as well as an entrepreneur. And he founded Interview Valet as a company that helps businesses grow by leveraging podcast interviews. Tom is known for his insights on using podcasts as a powerful tool for marketing and building brand authority. Now, on today's show, Tom is going to share more about why introverts make better podcast guests. I can vouch for that. How one funnel away hurts introverts, as well as networking for introverts through podcasting. So welcome to the show, Tom.
Anne-Marie, I am thrilled to be here.
Such a great topic. And I know that you've got such a depth of wisdom and insights to share. So let's just get straight into it. Often introverts, and I'm an introverted extrovert, we think, oh, podcasts, I'm not out there and able to, command the microphone and all of that. But really, introverts make much better podcast guests. Share why.
They do. And this isn't my just opinion. We've looked at the data from over the 10 years of doing this. And there's a book called The Introvert's Edge by Matthew Pollard, where he talks about it. And it really opened my eyes to it. And as I started talking with all of our clients, the ones that were getting the best results seemed to be introverts. And that was because that introverts, by their nature, tend to prepare more. They're better at empathy. They're better at one-on-one conversations. And that's what a podcast is. They can tell stories. They can talk about the things that are most interesting to them. We're not really good in small talk. And that's not a podcast. A podcast is talking about your passion. And so one of the things that we saw was that the days of that, I call it the carnival barker, the extrovert, nobody wants that anymore. That people turn that away. What they're craving for is that connection, the insights, the wisdom. And I think it's the introverts that deliver on that. The other thing that I have seen is that the introverts tend to improve, right? Trying to listen to your podcast to get better. Nobody likes to do that. But so many people just want to do more. But it seems like the introverts are the ones that want our feedback. And after every interview, we'll give our clients feedback. And those are the clients that they get better and better and get better and better results with it.
And when you talk about better and better, are you also talking about the confidence and nerves? Because that's one of the things that often inhibits or prevents someone who relates more to being introverted. The nerves, how on earth am I going to get over that to be able to speak and share my story? So do you find with those who want more feedback and who do continue, even though there may be nerves there, they also improve as far as confidence and delivery?
Well, I think the nerves are a great thing, right? The performers will say when you get rid of the nerves, that means you don't care anymore. And we've seen that before where people will come in and go, it's just a Zoom call. No, it's a Zoom call with thousands of people listening in. And so the people that don't have the nerves and don't prepare, they don't do as well. But I think it's more the confidence. And Anne-Marie, if we would have been talking 5 years ago, I think it would have been a different story, because getting on a Zoom call was really tough 5 years ago. And then fast forward after the pandemic, well, we're all used to Zoom calls, right? We lived on Zoom. And so often a podcast interview, it's just like a Zoom call. right? It's
Mhm.
talking one-on-one with someone. And especially since you can do it from your office, your home, people are much more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert myself. And I can think of the hardest interviews I've done. And I was at a big conference one time and they had the professional studios, the professional mics. I hated it
Yeah.
because it wasn't my chair. It wasn't my microphone. I feel comfortable in my space. So I think the true nature of it just makes it easier for introverts. And, I always tell people your first interview is always going to be your worst, right? Your first
Mm.
game of golf is going to be your worst. Whatever it is, get it done so that you can improve and get better. And so we work
Mm.
with people on that. And I encourage people to get out there and share what they know.
Yes. You know, what I love about what you're saying, it really reconfirms that podcasting is about having those conversations, but deep conversations. And I know as introverts, that's what we love, don't we? We love unpacking. We love being able to maybe even speak with people who may not necessarily be in agreement, but be able to respectfully have a conversation that really allows others to go, you know what, that is great. That's food for thought. Similarly to networking, and we're going to unpack why networking for introverts through podcasting is such a great way as well. Similarly, if we're thinking about going to a networking event, there is nothing worse than us going around the room, handing out business cards. But if we have one or two different people that we can have a conversation with, find out more about them and, what do they enjoy about their work, their passion, their purpose, and so forth. When we shift our mindset to think, you know what, a podcast is a conversation. Yes, it's being recorded and it will be publicized to many people. But if they think about just one person, one conversation, and let that lead you, I think we can have a whole new perspective on what that podcast is and help us calm our nerves to that. Would you agree?
I agree, and I think we do our name of our company, right? Interview Valet. I think that
Yeah.
does a disservice because it's not an interview, right? This is a conversation. It's the same conversation you and I would be having if we sat down and had a cup of coffee. The only difference is it's being recorded. So it's really more of a conversation or a discussion, and everybody can have those, and they can definitely have ones that they're passionate about on topics that they're passionate about.
Yes, and I think that's the difference, isn't it? You mentioned when people get feedback and they continue to preparation even from the studies that you've alluded to, when people were best prepared, that is when they got the best results. And I know as introverts, we do tend to want to be prepared. Sometimes for some of us, it's over preparation and we realize, oh my goodness, I knew my stuff anyway, and the conversation's over before it begins. Let's move into the next point about being how one funnel away hurts introverts. When you talk about one funnel away, what do you mean by that?
So this is a marketing message that's been out there for years, and it's talked about by the people that are selling you the software to build funnels, right? And their premise is if you just build a funnel, all of your problems will be solved. And it sounds really nice, doesn't it, Anne Marie? Right?
We're temp-
If I don't have to talk to anybody and I just have to build a funnel, and then all of my dreams will magically happen. But I think if we all look, it sounds really good. But what's our experience been? I think of the best thing in my life, right? My best clients, my best team members, my best friends. They didn't come through funnels. They came through conversations, right? My bride, 20 years ago, it was an introduction, a conversation that changed my life, right? I did not find my wife by having Facebook ads and the perfect funnel, right? It takes a conversation. And I think there's a misnomer now that selling services is the same as products, right? Products can be sold, but services are bought. And too often people will say, well, what works selling a $5 widget works for high ticket sales or works for services. And if you think about it, it's like, well, if it worked for high ticket sales, then why doesn't Boeing and Airbus sell their airplanes off of Facebook ads and master classes.
Mm.
Must not scale up that way. Or you look at the best people, the industry leaders in B2B services, consulting, Ernst & Young, Bain Capital, McKinsey. They're not getting all of their clients off of, Facebook ads and funnels. No, they're going out and speaking. Now, for them, speaking is usually at the conferences they put on, but for other people, you can speak on other people's stages. And I think this idea of funnels and you're one funnel away can hurt people. In that, I'm a big fan of automation, right? I'm an engineer by degree. But at a certain point, you have to go out and talk to people. You have to have that conversation. And then you can use that automation to make your life and their life better. But it doesn't replace that. And I think I've been guilty of it before, where I'll spend an entire weekend, right? And it's like, oh, I'm working on this perfect automation, all the rest of this, and nothing ever comes through it. And I've had people challenge me, and it's like, oh, you just doing that to avoid talking with clients? I'm like, probably, right? Because
if we're honest, isn't it? If we can automate it, all of that, that would be wonderful for us introverts.
It is, but the truth comes from those conversations, right? I've always said, just to remind myself, that truth and clarity come at the other side of an awkward 10-minute conversation, right? We can read books, we can get consultants and coaches, and they can give us their opinion. But I've often found that the true answers come from our clients, right? They'll tell us what they love and what they loathe. And we just got to have those conversations with them and be smart enough to double down on what they love and stop doing what they loathe.
What you're saying is really speaking my language. I'm not sure, Tom, if you've heard of an organization called Edelman. They're quite renowned across the world for consulting. But one of the areas that they focus on every single year is a survey that surveys thousands of individuals from different countries, different backgrounds, particularly, executives and so forth. And the survey focuses on what builds trust. And it's interesting to see what constitutes trust in the view of individuals. And we've seen huge shifts and changes. One of the things that they determined, and this was a number of years ago, and I think it's still very relevant today, speaks to the first point you mentioned about, things being overly produced or being too, extroverted. People don't like that anymore. They want connection. They want authenticity. And they determined that if, podcasts were too overproduced, or the person seemed so polished, what were they hiding? So because they compared it to media, mainstream media, and there's a huge level of distrust with mainstream media now, I think even more so today. So that's something to consider. So if someone is thinking, yes, but I'm not polished like those others, people don't want polished, because if it's too polished, if it's overproduced, people will think, what are they hiding? Or there's that authenticity is not there. But the second point that I want to talk to your second point, there is the last survey that was done. There was such a huge change with regards to consumers and what constitutes trust for them, that they've labeled their survey the collapse of the purchase funnel. So that one funnel away and the Facebook ads, and then get them into the funnel, that has been completely shattered in the results. Because, and here's the thing, consumers, and we're all consumers, there's far more skepticism. Is that person saying and advertising what they're actually going to deliver? And results have been that often not. So what that means is consumers are taking a lot more time to now make their purchase decision. They're doing a lot more research. They're listening and watching and really, absorbing what people are saying. So what's important for all of us to consider, even the introverts, which I know is very much what they do anyway, authenticity, value, competence, and relevance to the conversation, which has always been important, I think. But so many people focus on, I'll just get a good ad in there, get them in the funnel, we'll send them automation and off we go. Doesn't work anymore because people will see right through that. And so I think that is so important. When we're having conversations, have conversations. Doesn't need to be polished. You do need to know what you're talking about. And of course, the preparation is going to help you bring relevance to that conversation. But isn't it interesting that consumers have voted and said, this is what we want? And something else that the study showed is that many brands that they interacted with weren't authentic. They didn't show competency or relevancy either. So there's a huge opportunity, especially for introverts who do know their things and their stuff. When getting on podcasts, you really can build that connection with a potential client.
Do you think that's even more important now in this sort of post AI world?
Oh,
Because uh,
absolutely.
every email I get, it's like, oh, is this really the person or is this AI? When I see
Yes.
an article, is it AI or is it a real person? And that's why I think you talked about authenticity. People know that these are not AI generated images because
Mhm.
I don't speak in complete sentences. I drop the G's off of words because I grew up in Chicago. But it's authentic, it's real, that collaborative content, and I think people are looking for that. And it's really
Yes.
interesting you said about the collapse of the funnel here in the states. The Federal Trade Commission is really cracking down these days of them allowing people to say, it's a $6,000 value, but it's yours today for $20.
Mm.
It's a digital product, but supplies are limited. There are people that are getting letters from the U.S. government, and it's costing them tens of millions of dollars for being
Yeah.
inauthentic. I don't think there's a lot of acceptance of that. As you said, people are they're tired of it.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And you can sense people aren't silly. They're not stupid. They can sense when something just does not feel right. And what you mentioned about preparation and clarity on your message, I think this is so important. That's why I'm sharing with all of my clients. Your reputation is everything. In fact, I call it reputation equity. When you build that systematically, strategically, and when I talk about your reputation, it is being authentic. And often it's the uncertainty. We're not clear on what makes me unique and uncopyable. And of course, once I know who my ideal client is and speak into the challenges, bring them valuable solutions, then you become unforgettable. And it's just doing that consistently over time builds the momentum that you need. And so I think even more so is very important for us to go out there, as you mentioned, have podcast interviews, have those little, if you've got your quirkinesses, whatever it is, don't worry about it because AI wouldn't include that in their, in their process. And that's what people are craving: real connection, real authenticity. Something else that I'll throw into the mix as well, and I'm not sure if listeners have heard about this, but Neil Patel, he's quite a well-known marketer in the space of SEO and quite reputable. He certainly has built his reputation on competence and relevance. And he was saying that Google themselves have found themselves in court because of anti-competitive allegations. And so if Google finds that they are going to have to change their business model, that means a lot of SEO and the advertising and so forth is going to change. But what Neil also says, because he's speaking our language, your reputation is important. Now, even more so, what's authentic for you? What's the competency and the expertise that you bring? Can you position, what you know as that influential, trusted authority? And when you do, and you're consistently sharing that on each episode, your articles, newsletters, whatever it is, how you're communicating your brand, that's when you build that reputation as a valid, solid person who knows what they're talking about and able to deliver what you promise. In fact, many of us over deliver what we promise because that's just who we are, don't we?
Yeah.
We want to provide exceptional, excellent service and support.
It's Neil Patel is awesome. And I love the examples that he talks about. And one of the things that I'm hearing more and more about is people call it either LMO for language machine optimization or AIO for AI optimization. Because, it used to be that we were talking to our ideal clients, and then we were also talking to the search engines. So we were
Uh-huh.
trying to get the keywords in, the backlinks. Over this summer, this summer of 2024, we've been hearing more clients saying, I'm getting referrals from ChatGPT, or somebody comes to us and they're like, we ask them, well, how did you find out about us? I just asked questions on ChatGPT and your name came up.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the same thing that you were talking about, your reputation,
Mm.
that's what they're talking about, that the large language models are looking for, right? With SEO, we can ask somebody on the inside, hey, how'd you build this algorithm?
Mm.
For the large language models, it's a little bit different. We've got to step back and say, how is the machine doing this? But there's two factors that everybody is pointing to. The first one is sentiment, right? Are people talking about you positively, neutrally, or negatively, right? Are they complaining or are they praising? And it's not keywords anymore. They're listening to everything. So that's the first one. And then the second one is share of voice, right? I heard somebody say you can't be successful and a secret at the same time. So you've
Yeah.
got to be out there having a share of voice. So I think both of those things are important. And, today for introverts, it's easier than ever.
Oh,
I live in
absolutely.
Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? I can speak to the world from here, and you can do it wherever you are too.
Oh, absolutely. So, so true. Someone might be thinking, Tom, I can't control what someone says and thinks about me. You may not be able to. You can certainly influence it. And the way that you influence is to get out there and share your voice. Otherwise, they will fill in the gap. If they can't find things, people will, we know that AI will put something together for you. So get out there and share that voice. Let's talk about networking for introverts through podcasting. This is just so true. Tell us more about this.
Oh, to me, networking is like a homework. It's like going to the dentist. I'll do it, right? I go to conferences. I see friends. I network, but I'm not going to be the person on the late party, or I won't be at the networking event long. I'll get together. Breakfast one on one is great. So the question then is for introverts: how can you network that uses your strengths from someplace you're comfortable? And the most comfortable place I am is in my home, in my office. And so we've seen people be able to use podcast interviews to network. Some people will call it content based relationship building, right? We've got a purpose to be here. It's not just, hey, let's just jump on a call, Anne Marie, and just talk for 10 minutes. The LinkedIn ones where, hey, can we connect for 15 minutes? No, I don't want to do small talk. But if we can create something together, that builds the relationship. We know what we're talking about. And you think about it, who do you want to network with? Well, your ideal customers, but even more so, the people that know your ideal customers, the referral partners, the influencers. And every podcast host out there is a micro influencer. Think about it. When you came to listen to this, it wasn't because, oh, Tom Schwab from Interview Valet's on here. No, you probably didn't know who I was, right? Let's be honest. You know Anne Marie, you admire her, you like her, and so you came to hear her and the guest that she had chosen just for you. So you talk about networking. I walked into a room where I didn't know anybody, and Anne Marie pulls me over and says, meet my friend Tom. And it's interesting. After the podcast interviews, you'll have people that will reach out, on LinkedIn, and they'll always mention who introduced you, right? This person. And so it becomes more of a referral, and it's a warm introduction, not just a cold lead. And that's
Mm.
one of the things that I struggle with here too. Have you noticed, like, everybody wants to give you more leads? I've got
Mm.
so many emails. We can get you more leads. It's almost like the days, remember, with Facebook likes? Oh, we can get more Facebook likes.
Yes.
That's not what I'm optimizing for. right? The bank doesn't care how many leads I have or how many Facebook likes I have. What they care about is profits. And
Mhm.
profits, while you sounds capitalistic, right? That means that you have happy clients, people that actually value what you do. These are the ones that energize you, you energize them. And so with the networking and being on podcasts here, it's okay to me if not everybody says, oh, Tom is the best thing since sliced bread. No, marketing should be like a magnet, and a magnet attracts the right things and repels the wrong things. So
Mm.
if someone doesn't resonate with me in the networking, in the podcast, that's fine, right? We're probably not a good match there. I don't want to waste their time. But if somebody hears me and they're like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. He's quirky, but I like it. That's a good person to work on and build that relationship, see where that could go, and see if they could turn into an ideal client.
Yes, so important. And, the people who have those podcast hosts or have host those podcasts have a community. If you do your research right, and I know that Interview Valet helps them to do this, and I'll get you in a moment, Tom, to share a little bit more about your business and how you may be able to support people who are listening today. If you are in front of potential ideal clients, it means that the information that you are sharing is far more relevant for their needs and the solutions and probably the challenges that they've been struggling with and unable to answer. And so that's far better than you've got a warm audience already going to a cold audience. How do you know of those leads? People who are going to send you leads. Yes, but how do we know that those leads are even open to hearing from us? And
Mhm.
so it's so important. And I think, if we go back to the collapse of the purchase funnel, we are far more targeted and getting in front of our ideal clients through the micro influencers, the podcast hosts, far more relevant to the people that you do get your message in front of. And I think that that's just so important, that particularly moving forward, where we crave that connection, with people. So I agree. I've loved my podcast, and I always say to people, that is the way that I do networking. I much prefer networking. I'm like you, Tom. In fact, I remember going to a 3-day conference with a colleague of mine who was a complete extrovert, so we were kind of like a match made in heaven. But by the end of the 3rd day, that evening, they had their red dress, their cocktails, and I said to my colleague, I said, I can't go. I have reached my word limit for the 3 days, and I won't even be able to say hello. She was so disappointed. I said, "Do you go? But she was just loving everything. I really just couldn't." And so I totally agree. And I think all the extroverts who are listening and even to the recording would probably agree too. But podcasting is a great way to connect and build those connections.
And the audio is so intimate and I'd say recognizable. Have you had anybody come up to you and recognize you by your voice? It was the weirdest
Yes.
thing. I was on a flight one time, and as I'm getting off the plane, someone comes up to me and said, "Are you Tom Schwab?" And my first thought was, "Are you a process server?" Right? No, it's not me. But I said, "Yes, I am." And he's like, "I recognized your voice. I've heard you on this podcast and this one." And I could look a lot different if I was on vacation or at a conference, something like that. But my voice never changes. And I just thought
Yes.
that was amazing that somebody sitting a row behind me recognized my voice from a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. And the deeper connection, people feel as if they know you, especially if they've been consistently listening to you, and you may share some of the more personal stories and just things that
Yeah.
happen as you go through your episodes, to the point that when you do meet someone and they feel like they know you and you think, I don't actually know who you are, but I'm just going to go with it anyway. It is. It's an incredible medium. It really is. So share for people. I know that we're just about at the completion of our time together, but I would love for you to share a little bit more about Interview Valet, Tom.
Yeah. So Interview Valet started about a decade ago. We help thought leaders. These are nonfiction authors, high level coaches, consultants, um, professional services get heard by their ideal customers, right? Stop trying to break through the noise. It's not working. So we help them get on podcasts that their ideal clients are already listening to. Then we help them move them from being a passive listener to an active visitor to an engaged lead. It's really beyond podcast guesting. It's podcast interview marketing. And today, more than ever, it's a powerful channel to get recognized by your clients, by SEO and AIO. And I've got a team of 22, all remote, right? Not everybody wants to live with me in Michigan. So we put a lot of free education out there. As I say, if anybody wants, I'll make a page here. It's interviewvalet.com/AES. All the information will be there that we talked about. There's a personal assessment that you can take. Will podcast interview marketing work for me? I wrote a book. Don't go to Amazon to buy it. Just go to that page. You can get a free copy. If you're in the States, I'll send it to you. If you're in overseas, I'll email it to you. And then also on that page, I'll put all of my contact information, my calendar scheduling link if you'd like to talk. All that will be there at interviewvalet.com/AES.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Tom, and sharing why it's so important, especially for introverts, to get on podcasting. It's a medium that if they have not yet experienced, they'll realize how much fun it actually is to have the conversations with incredible hosts. Not only that, building relationships and networking, they'll be able to network with many more people who they will maybe never ever meet face to face until the person who's the ideal client listens to them on an interview and thinks, I like what this person has to say. I want to find out more. And then, of course, they'll start to follow them. So highly recommend go and give Tom and his team a call and go to that link. But thanks once again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Hey, it's Anne-Marie. Before I go, are you a coach or a consultant who feels like the world's best kept secret? Your experience is vast, yet secretly you're frustrated because despite all of your hard work, you're just not getting the visibility, leads, or new clients you'd hope for, and you don't know why? I've created free training and resources that'll help you build visibility, generate leads, and enroll dream clients with ease because you're seen as a trusted authority, even in a crowded marketplace. And you've positioned yourself as the choice versus just a choice with your unique, uncopyable, and unforgettable brand and message. And you're able to nurture listeners into leads from your podcast, even from your first episode. To access these free resources, go to ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/community. That's ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/community.